channel. Bookdown #7.
Bruh.
Stranger Things is probably the most popular show on Netflix at the moment. It's their biggest sci-fi horror show, and in this series I am going to review every episode so far, leading up to the finale in a few days time. This is part 1 out of 3, and in this part I'm going to review season 1. This is how it's going to work. I am going to talk about each episode of the season, and I'm going to give it a rating. Then I'm going to compare that rating to its IMDb counterpart. At the end of each season, I'll compare the average rating to IMDb's one, and at the end of the series, I'm going to compare the average rating for all episodes so far with the Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic ratings. Also, I should point out I am not the biggest fan of this show, as I think it's mediocre, filled with predictable, lazy written moments, and made to be popular. Again, this is coming from a guy who really likes darker shows like Family Guy or Dexter, so don't really count on my opinion. Well, Family Guy isn't really the dark show, but it's got a lot of dark humor in it, so I'm putting it in this category. Anyways, without further delay, let's get started with Season 1, Episode 1, Chapter 1, The Vanishing of Will Byers. I think this episode is one of the best of the show, as it creates a very good introduction to its characters. I think starting the episode with Will's appearance is better rather than waiting until the end of it to create this plot point. I think that the boys get a brief but effective introduction, but I like how they base their reaction to Will's disappearance on a real child's reaction in this situation, though it would be much sadder in real life. Elle is introduced in an interesting way, with flashbacks including Dr. Brenner, very important to the storyline, as an average person would then understand what happened. Again, the children not believing Will is dead is something that connects directly to the 5 stages of grief in the real world. We see some romantic moments between Steve and Nancy, but I do believe that Jonathan and Nancy should have been together from the start, as they are written with similar personality traits. Having Winona Ryder as an established actor helps the show grow in popularity, and it also helps the child actors be known as the guy or girl who was in a show with. Finally, the episode's last scene finally makes a connection between the different storylines, with the boys meeting Eleven. I do think that they needed to make this connection, as some people might have not intuited that these were connected in some sort of way. All in all, a great start to the season, and I will give the episode a 8.3 rating, which is only 0.2 lower than its IMDb rating. Moving on to episode 2, The Weirdo on Maple Street. I firmly think that the connection between the boys and Eleven, especially Mike, leads to her trusting them to keep her powers a secret. I do think this is very beneficial to the story, as only now do some people realize how important it is to keep these storylines together, and how crucial is it to finding a Will. I think Jonathan visiting Looney is a bit too much for some people, as I think they could have just made this conversation over the phone, as Looney isn't a crucial character at all. Joyce and her strange phone call adds to the drama of the episode, but in my opinion, would have been replaced with a more important moment. Steve's party again helps connect the storylines, with Barb's disappearance, something that is becoming kind of a regularity for the end of an episode. Steve and Nancy again continue their romance, but I do think they drag this subplot out too much, as they could have just buried it in this part of the show. Otherwise, Jonathan spying on them and taking up inappropriate pictures of Nancy is important to the storyline, but I do think I have seen this type of event once before in an older movie. And so I believe this episode is an average one. I'll give it a 7.2 with some additional points for the way of revealing Elle's powers, which I really enjoyed. It's a good chunk lower than its IMDb rating of 8.3 though. Episode 3, Holly Jolly, has the first glimpse at the Upside Down, and I think that opening is the best part of the episode. Hopper's visit to the Hawkins lab and later his discovery of Dr. Brenner's past makes for a good foreshadowing moment, though I think it could have been delayed to a more obvious and important moment, maybe a few episodes later. The Steve Jordan drama is the obvious replica of the American teenager bully drama, but with some important details about that added that make it different and not a copy. However, Nancy feeling a bit sad for Jonathan is unrealistic and probably will never happen in real life. As for her discovering Barbie in the pictures and later encountering the Demogorgon is something realistic that paints her deep care for Barbara and makes her situation even more shit and unusual. Joyce talking to Will through the light and also encountering a Demogorgon of her own again could have been interpreted as a scene that just helps the story and the viewers who might not have pieced it together yet. The boys following 11 is a good move when I think shows that she's not that different from others. Then the finding of Will's body is a good twist, but I did not believe it was the real body from the beginning, as there was no way they could kill a major character so soon. The episode does get only a 6.8 from me for many predictable and ethically questionable moments. This means the episode is already a long way off IMDb's 8.8 rating, highlighting how big of a downgrade I think the show has had from a pretty great beginning. Moving on to episode 4, The Body, Hopper discovers that Will's body is fake and his breaking into the Hawkins lab is well organized since an else important role in proving that Will communicates with Joyce is interestingly written. I think that the fact that only now we see the first bits of intimate conversation between Jonathan and Nancy is disappointing, but at least they have a good purpose and are well organized and realistic. Now, of course, Nancy finally admitting after being interviewed by the police about Barbara's disappearance, she slept with Steve to her mother is a huge step in these two's relationship, but I do think realistically Karen would have reacted differently and aggressively towards Steve even in those circumstances. We also get another glimpse of the Upside Down through the Hawkins lab, the mystery continuing to unfold. In general, this is the episode that I think fits the name Stranger Things the best, but it's still an average episode, and I'll give it a 7.5, again lower than IMDb's 8.9. And so this is my opinion, and again, it's worse than average one. In episode 5, The Flea and the Acrobat, Looney's appearance is justified, though I still think that isn't a character worth including that much. The boys getting the idea of searching for electromagnetic fields thanks to Mr. Clark is a brilliant idea and timing, as using a minor but light character to unknowingly help the main characters is something you don't see every day. Will's funeral actually seems quite funny from the outside, and Nancy starting to dish the Steve for Jonathan is something very interesting though. Again, it would have been I don't know, it would have been made it easier to have Jonathan and Nancy together from the beginning. Of course, adding some romantic tension to this already very genre show was so important. Hopper's situation with the cameras and stuff is nicely executed, even though I still think it follows a normal script for this type of sci-fi government involved in interdimensional shows. Eleven's flashbacks are crucial to the understanding of the show and paint an image of where the monsters come from. Eleven's betrayal, though, and her altercation, if we can call it out, with Lucas is unexpected and probably not needed, but entertaining nonetheless. Also, we start getting a lot of Mike level moments, foreshadowing the relationship. The ending of the episode is fun and intriguing, and Nancy is the first person to face this kind of action in the Upside Down, other than Will, of course. This sets up the next few episodes nicely. I think this episode overall is a better one, deserving of a 7.8, whilst it's still lower from its IMDb rating of 8.6. Episode 6, The Monster, has a very good start, solidifying the relationship between Nancy and Jonathan, and it also yet again pushes the show further into the romance genre. Hopper and Joyce discovering the mystery behind Elle feels a bit forced, as they need to complete the storyline, but it isn't that badly executed. Jonathan and Nancy's plan seems realistic for a TV show, however, the fight with Steve and his buddies again feels forced, trying to complete the Steve Nancy story. The boys arguing with each other is funny and well coordinated, and Earl's comeback is nicely dramatized, but adopting the American Bully storyline weakens originality. The Hawkins Lab employees spying on the kids is something again well dramatized, and the cliffhanger the episode ends on is amazing. I'm going to give this episode the 8.1 rating, yet again lower than its average IMDb rating of 8.8, but closer as the quality of the episode starts rising again. Episode 7, The Bathtub, has a nice beginning with Mike telling Elle she's pretty, and the kids being chased by the Hawkins Lab officials is very exciting and entertaining, and the way Joyce and Hopper's storyline merges with the main one is brilliantly executed. However, the scene where Mike asks Nancy if she likes Jonathan, and Nancy asks Mike if he likes Eleven is just some very bad foreshadowing. Dr. Banner lying to the Wheelers is weird, but also necessary to the plot. The connection between Joyce and Elle is somewhat unexpected and exciting, whilst Hopper and Joyce leaving the kids and then getting captured is an example of forced, lazy writing. Same for Nancy and Jonathan trying to help them, just adding unnecessary complications. Finally, the should I stay or should I go ending is more fun than frightening, at least from my perspective. I'll give the episode a 7.4 just for a lousy second part. It's a 1.6 of its IMDb rating, and the show takes a dive in performance again. Episode 8, The Upside Down, is the season finale. It has a nice beginning with the interrogation of Hopper and Joyce and the deal they make, though I think the scenes feel overly forced and dramatic, and they should be sadder with a lot more mind games in play. The Jonathan, Nancy, and Steve sequence is extraordinarily good and bad at the same time, having a brilliant amount of action but a lot of confusion and tying up a loose end with Steve's appearance. Joyce and Hopper's journey through the Upside Down is well written and shown, with the flashbacks exactly at the right moment. Mike and Elle kissing is expected, and the battle ending with Elle's sacrifice is odd. Of course, killing a main character is a brave move, but revealing it isn't actually the following season is, well, horrible writing and makes the show look unserious. Will's recovery scenes at the hospital are wholesome, and ending is just what we needed. However, Steve still together with Nancy is a weird choice for the show, revealing the plans to continue developing its romantical part. In conclusion, the episode deserves a 6.5, some 2.8 behind its IMDb rating, making it the weakest episode so far. And so, the season ends with an average rating of 7.5, which is significantly lower than its average IMDb rating of 8.8. I think this show is a bit overrated. Anyways, thanks for watching. Part 2 will be up tomorrow. Until then, like, subscribe, and goodbye.